Hey Beyond the Gates fans, it's Radhika from Radhika, and we're going to talk about Nicole's romance mess, Danny's awful timing, and Anita's big family party on Beyond the Gates. But first, please hit subscribe if you're not already following us. So this week on Beyond the Gates, or really heading into next week, Nicole is out here enjoying herself, and I mean she should. She is dating two men at the same time, she is not acting guilty about it, and honestly, I liked that. It is confident, it is grown, and it is a lot more interesting than watching somebody pretend they do not have choices when they clearly do. But of course, this is soapland, so the second a woman starts having a good time, everybody suddenly becomes a relationship expert, which is annoying and very on brand. Now, the big moment in the preview is Ted talking to Nicole at the hospital. And he does not tiptoe into it either. He asks her, "Are you falling in love with Carlton or Kyle?" That is not a casual question. That is not polite small talk. That is a man walking directly into the center of her emotional business. And what makes it even juicier is Nicole does not snap at him. She does not tell him to mind his business. Instead, she tells him, "You still know me better than anyone." That line is loaded. I mean, come on. That is the kind of line that keeps a whole audience talking because it says there is still history there, still understanding there, still some emotional loose and hanging in the air. And honestly, that is what makes Ted dangerous in the story. Not dangerous in some villain, reign of terror kind of way, but dangerous because he still gets her. He still sees through her. He still knows what question to ask if he wants the truth instead of the polished version. So right away, Nicole's love life stops feeling like a fun juggling act and starts feeling serious. The word love is in the room now. Once that happens, somebody usually ends up crushed. And then the preview shifts into a much lighter mood, at least on the surface, because Anita decides she wants to paint the town red. I loved that energy. Anita is lively, she is giddy, she is dancing, and she wants a big uptown gathering with the Duprees and their people. But you know how soaps work. A happy family event is rarely just a happy family event. It is a setup. It is a glamorous trap. It is where people show up together, watch each other too closely, and smile through the awkwardness until somebody says one thing too many. So, we see Nicole with Kyle on the couch, and she is reading a text that says her mother wants them at Uptown. And that little detail matters to me because Kyle is right there in the moment. He is not some off-screen option. He is present. He is physically beside Nicole when family life enters the picture. And on soaps, that kind of placement is never random. It makes him feel current. It makes him feel immediate. It makes him feel like the man standing closest to her actual life. Then later at Uptown, everybody is dancing, everybody is celebrating, everybody is looking joyful. And honestly, that is exactly why I think the party could get messy. A family event like that puts everything under the microscope. Who shows up with whom? Who looks comfortable? Who seems like they belong? Who is watching from across the room? So yes, Anita wants joy, and I am sure there will be joy, but there is also no way a Dupree gathering this big stays purely light. Not with Nicole's dating life getting hotter, and Ted's questions still hanging over everything. And then, speaking of things getting hotter, Danny barges in at literally the worst possible moment. Nicole is in bed with Kyle, and suddenly she notices somebody at the door. She says, "What are you doing?" in that very specific sister tone that says you have lost your mind. And Danny just goes, "Oopsie," like she walked into the wrong brunch, not somebody's bedroom. Honestly, that is terrible behavior, but it is also very funny and very Danny. Now, that scene is obviously meant to have some comedy, but I think it matters for a bigger reason too. Nicole's private life is no longer staying private. Ted is asking personal questions. Danny is physically barging into private moments. Anita's party is pulling romance into a family setting. Everything is crossing over. The walls are coming down. Nicole can still act cool, and she probably will, but the situation itself is getting harder to manage. And Danny is not done being a menace, because later Nicole confronts her downstairs and Danny says, "I don't know how you left that in your bedroom alone and unattended." That line is wild. She is basically teasing Nicole like Kyle is some rare treasure she found by accident. It is rude, it is intrusive, it is hilarious, And it also tells me Danny is going to have opinions about Nicole's love life, whether Nicole wants them or not. So when I look at the recap as a whole, this is what I see. Nicole starts the week as a woman who is enjoying her options. Ted forces her to think about whether those options are becoming real feelings. Kyle is right there in her space, both on the couch and in the bedroom, which gives him strong romantic momentum. Anita creates a big public family moment at Uptown, which is the exact kind of place where relationship dynamics start showing. And Danny, being Danny, crashes the whole thing emotionally and probably keeps stirring after that. It is funny, but it is also pressure. A lot of pressure. Now, we also get a glimpse of the Hamiltons, and wow, they're not exactly giving bliss. Bill is in one of his cranky moods, which honestly seems to be his default setting lately, and he is snapping at Haley about whether he should ban his daughters from coming into his house. And Haley fires back, "Oh, only your house." That is such a sharp, dry little response. These two are not acting like a happy couple at all. They are acting like people who are one bad conversation away from going fully berserk on each other. So even though that is not the main storyline here, it adds to the whole feeling of next week being packed with tension. Now, let's get into the speculation because this is where it gets really good. First up, I suspect Ted's question is not just curiosity. I am betting it comes from a real, emotional place. You do not ask your ex whether she is falling in love with one of two other men unless some part of you still cares a little too much. Maybe it is concern. Maybe it is regret. Maybe it is jealousy he is trying to hide under calm words. But whatever it is, I do not think Ted is detached. And Nicole's answer only makes that more obvious, because if she says he still knows her better than anyone, then their bond is still alive in some form. Not necessarily romantic, not confirmed, but alive enough to matter. Next, I think Kyle has the strongest visible momentum right now. And honestly, that is just what the preview is showing us. He is on the couch with Nicole when the family invite comes in. He is in bed with her when Danny barges in. He is tied directly to Nicole's current, everyday intimacy. So if you were asking me who feels like the frontrunner based on pure promo energy, I would say Kyle. He feels warm, immediate, and already woven into Nicole's real space. That matters a lot on a soap. Now, that does not mean Carlton is out of the picture. Not at all. In fact, another possibility is that Carlton ends up being the quieter threat in this love triangle. Sometimes the show leans heavy on one connection visually, so the other one can sneak up emotionally. Ted specifically names Carlton and Kyle, which tells me both men matter. So I could see Carlton being the one who is less flashy in the preview but still very important in Nicole's heart. It is not a stretch. Soaps love that kind of misdirection. Another thing I wonder is whether Nicole herself even knows the answer yet. That is what makes her response to Ted so interesting. She does not answer his actual question. She answers the feeling behind it. She basically says, "You still understand me." To me, that sounds like a woman who may not be ready to name what she feels because naming it makes it real. And once it becomes real, somebody is doomed to get hurt. And honestly, Ted may be the person who forces that honesty faster than Nicole wanted. That is what exes do on soaps. They do not always win the person back, but they mess with the emotional board. Ted may never become Nicole's actual romantic choice again, but he could absolutely be the catalyst who makes her stop pretending this is all still casual. That alone is powerful. Now, let's talk about Danny, because I think her interruption is more than comic relief. I could see Danny becoming the voice of the audience inside the story. She is the one who sees the mess and comments on it out loud. She is the one who refuses to act like all of this is neat and controlled. And because she is Nicole's sister, she can get away with saying things that other people cannot. That makes her dangerous in a very soap sibling way. One sarcastic comment from Danny at the wrong time could make a whole room uncomfortable. And that is exactly why Anita's party feels like a potential pressure cooker to me. I suspect that Uptown event is going to be more important than it looks. Yes, it is a celebration. Yes, it is family joy. But it is also public space. It is social visibility. If Kyle is at Nicole's side there, people will notice. If Danny is buzzing around with fresh knowledge of Nicole's bedroom situation, that could get messy fast. If Ted's question is still sitting in Nicole's mind, then even a fun dance floor could feel emotionally loaded. Another possibility is that the party becomes a kind of test. Who fits naturally into Nicole's world? Who looks like they belong beside her when family is involved? Sometimes chemistry is one thing, but social fit is another. I could see the show using Uptown to quietly signal which relationship feels easy in public and which one still feels uncertain. That does not decide endgame, of course, but it shapes perception. And here is the biggest thing for me. Ted's line introduces the word love, and once that word arrives, the game changes. Dating two men can be playful. Falling in love with one of them is a whole different story. That is where panic starts. That is where expectations start. That is where people stop being casual and start wanting answers. So I think next week is really about Nicole moving from freedom into emotional consequence. Now, another theory I have is that Nicole may actually lean harder into Kyle right after Ted rattles her. Not because Kyle is automatically the final choice, but because he feels present and comforting. If Ted makes her feel exposed, she may reach for the connection that feels easiest in the moment. That would make sense to me. It would also make things more painful later if her deeper feelings turn out to be more complicated than that. And that is where Carlton becomes interesting again. If Nicole and Kyle are getting the visible romantic scenes, Carlton could end up representing something different entirely. Maybe he is the slower burn option. Maybe he is the one the preview is holding back on purpose. I could absolutely see the show doing that. So while Kyle looks like the obvious romantic lead right now, I would not write Carlton off for 1 second. Now, let me say this directly because I know everybody watching is going to pick sides. You would think dating two men sounds fun until your ex hits you with a question like that and your sister catches you in bed with one of them. At that point, honestly, the glamorous part is over. The chaos has arrived. I also think Nicole's exact line to Ted is the clue that matters most. You still know me better than anyone is not nothing. That tells me the past still has reach. And if the past still has reach, then no matter how hot things are with Kyle or however meaningful things may be with Carlton, Ted's emotional shadow is still in the room. That does not mean she wants Ted back, but it does mean he still matters more than a fully detached ex should. Now, let's briefly touch the secondary storyline, because Heather versus Vanessa sounds like its own little shocker. Heather has some fun before revealing who she really is, and she delivers that line about not slinging drinks, not shuffling cards, not being a sex worker, but having shared a bed with Joey for many, many years. That is pure soap mischief. She is clearly enjoying the setup, and Vanessa is clearly being positioned for an ugly surprise. So while Nicole's romance is the main event, Heather is absolutely bringing side drama energy that could be deliciously diabolical. So my overall take is this. Nicole's love life is about to stop being casual fun and start becoming an emotional crossroads. Ted is the one who lights that fuse. Kyle feels like the man with the strongest immediate momentum. Carlton still feels like a real contender because the story keeps his name in play. Danny is going to stir the pot because that is what she does best. And Anita's Uptown celebration may be the place where all of this gets harder to hide. My prediction? Kyle comes out of next week looking like the strongest current romance, but Ted's question is the real game changer, because it proves Nicole's heart is not as simple as it looks. Ted still has too much emotional access, and that is going to matter. We'll see. Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Rodica is on all the major podcast platforms including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.